because I wanted to just kind of have a little read for a few minutes. But amazing stuff. Also, one other thing I want to bring to everybody's attention, and that is a book that was sent to me by one of our listeners, and this is by Lee Summers. It's called Never Anticipate the Command. Now, this book is really a tribute to her father, who served as a Marine.
Yeah. Tell us more about that.
Well, I kind of met Lee last week when she was listening into my interview with Bill Luman, and she was texting. She actually called in at one point, and she wrote this book in tribute to her dad. Now, I can't tell you anything about it because I haven't read it yet, but I have 2 copies. I'm holding your copy in my hands right now, Daniel. Yeah, hear that? I'm banging against the microphone. I'm going to send you your copy tomorrow, and anyway,
you remember.
Yeah, you'll remind me. Yeah. Anyway, what Lee has here is during her childhood, Lee Summers came to realize what a special father she had in Henry Sonfeld, a former U.S. Marine. He instilled discipline and commitment in her, and he taught her about sacrifice, heroism, and patriotism. Best of all, he had wonderful bedtime stories. If you guys want to get a hold of this, it's on all the regular, like it's on Barnes & Noble, it's at Amazon. You can get your hands on a copy. I have an advanced copy right here, 2 of them. And Daniel, you'll be getting yours right away. So I want you guys to check into that. Lee Summers, Never Anticipate the Command. All right. Well, anyway, it is Friday night, and tonight we're interviewing Rodney Smith. And Rodney, when we last left off, you had finished auditioning with Frank Zappa, and then you came back to the East Coast. And what happened after that? What was going on with you?
Well, then my life took a very unexpected but common turn. I came back, and every gig and connection that I had musically just seemed to fall off the table. Remember the Frank Macchia that I told you about? He and a lot of my friends in that band, it was an 11-piece band, they, a fair number of them all picked up and moved to the West Coast.
Right.
And with them, they all went to the West Coast, and with them went my connections for GB gigs, weddings and things like that, where I was making a fair amount of my living.
Oh, yeah.
And being out of Berkeley, it was harder to stay in contact with the student community to continue to make more contacts for gigs and such.
Right.
It just seemed like there was a point where it was really, really hard to find work. So my mom, being as most moms are, said to me, "Oh, why don't you get a real job for a while?"
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that drumming stuff is okay, but
give it up.
Yeah, why don't you make a real living? So she had been working at New York Telephone for a while, and she said, "Why don't you try the phone company?"
So Mom got on you.
She got on me, and I almost took it like a dare. Yeah, okay, fine. I'll give it a shot.
I'll show you.
Yeah. I'll show you that it won't work out.
Little did you know.
Yeah, little did I realize. But, I never forget. I called up the phone company. "Are you guys hiring?" "Yes, we are." "You need to come up to Lynn," which is north suburb of Boston, and take a test. They had something called the BSAT. It was the Bell SAT.
Right.
To just make sure that you weren't like a complete dope.
Yeah.
Before they would take you on. So I took that test, and at the time, I just went for whatever they were hiring. They were hiring like clerical people and folks for operator services, which has to be one of the levels of Dante's Inferno. It's just
that bad.
Being an operator. Well, it's probably a lot different now because by the time I got out of it, it was becoming more automated and stuff.
Yeah.
But just prior to that, people were actually like, you had
jumping out of buildings?
Well, you had a huge library of paper directories, and that's how you looked up numbers.
Oh, jeez,
yeah. What that's like?
Archaic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went in and went through a 2-week training period to become an operator, and thank goodness they had gone to some rudimentary computer form.
Right.
And I started being an operator. And much to my surprise, it's funny how things work out. As soon as I started working for the phone company, I started getting gigs again.
Really?
Weird thing. But the good part is when you're in your early 20s, you can burn the candle at three ends,
right?
In a way that you can't do at my age now.
Yeah.
So I would go out and play, from 9 to whatever. By the time I got home and put the tubs away, it was between 2 and 3, and I could still get up and be fresh for a 9 to 5. So I started saying, why can't I do both?
Right.
Because being a semi-struggling musician, out of school, making both a steady paycheck and the gig money was like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
I can actually eat and drive. And,
Almost have a life.
Yeah, exactly. You know. So I did that for a while. Then I started looking around the phone company and saying, I think I could do more than this.
Like what?
Well, that computer stuff that I had percolating in the back of my brain.
And this is really before what we know now as the computer age.
Absolutely. I grew up through all of that. When I started, I don't know if they do that anymore, but essentially I took a test to get into their computer department.
Okay.
I'm just abbreviating whatever the titles are.
Yeah, sure.
And so I took a test, and when I passed it, they decided, okay, what they do is they take a class and they would divvy you up on what you're going to learn. You're either going to learn COBOL, or at that time it was PL1, kind of like a machine language.
Gotcha.
So they said, okay, you're going to learn COBOL. So I went through a crash course over a summer through the phone company, and it was like pass-fail every module.
Oh, yeah?
So you had to pass everything, or you go back from whence you came.
So you backed off the gigs?
Well, I didn't so much back off the gigs, but I went forward with this this programmer basic training, PBT they called it.
Okay.
And at the end of that, I was given an assignment working downtown Boston. I'm sorry, I need to talk closer into the microphone.
No, you're doing good.
Okay. Assigned to an office down on Franklin Street in Boston, the financial district, and I was a maintenance programmer. I don't know if it's still there, but if you look on a phone bill, if there's a line that says other charges and credits, I used to program the programs that would that dealt with that billing.
So you're the guy I can yell at.
I'm the guy. Well,
I got a couple bones to pick with you about those other charges, pal.
Yeah, well, you got to have some pretty old bills.
I'd just like to say that the caller on line 2, you'll be brought in very shortly when Mark's finished.
Yeah, we'll get to you. Don't worry, caller. Hang on.
Okay. So I started doing that, and I'm still gigging. And actually, I got some pretty good gigs. Another one, one of the few that I like to brag on. I got to play a double bill with Bo Diddley and Roy Orbison.
Really?
At Symphony Hall. Yeah, apparently
in Boston.
Yeah.
Really?
Apparently, Bo Diddley doesn't normally travel with a band.
Or didn't. God bless
or
his heart.
didn't. Yeah. So when Bo came to town, he, I guess the agency or whoever contacted Berkeley and said, we need a backup band for Bo.
Right.
And the bass player, who I guess was given the charge to find some other folk, called me up and said, hey, you want to do this gig with Bo? And I said, yeah, absolutely. You're kidding me?
Yeah, why not?
And I learned a great lesson from Bo Diddley, because all week long, if I didn't have any, I went out and I bought some Bo Diddley records to
Oh yeah, you got to get the Bo Diddley beat down.
Yeah, So I'm cramming all these records.
Right.
And I get there on Sunday before the gig, and Bo's in his dressing room. He's got his spread of food and everything. And
his pork pie hat on.
He didn't have the hat on.
No.
But he had them glasses.
Oh, okay.
and I'm thinking that we're going to discuss the gig.
Right.
And we talked about everything but music.
Really?
We talked about the problem he was having with gators on his property down in Florida. I had seen a documentary about where when he would gig in the South, he would face racism. And I remember this image of him frying some chicken in an electric skillet for the band.
Right.
So they could eat right.
Yeah.
And I talked to him about that.
Really?
And some other stuff. But what he said to me was just so amazing. He said two things. First, he says, I don't want you kids. I was young enough then that I was a kid.
Yeah, sure.
He said, I don't want you kids to try to play like what I did in the records.
Really?
Yeah. So that was then.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you kids do whatever you do on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take care of the top. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
And he also said, I also don't care if you guys play your ass off. He said, I was somewhere, I forget where the gig was. He said, I was somewhere, and I had this young bass player, and he said, he was just playing his behind off. He said, I don't care about that because y'all just going to make me look better.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing because I can't tell you how many bands I had been in where the leader was so uptight about being upstaged that they really kept a lid on us.
Yeah, right.
You know,
sure.
Very oppressive. I mean, I look back and it's amazing what you'll do for a paycheck. But I play with a lot of cats where they were they were more concerned about that than the music.
Right.
And Bo, here's this guy renowned, and he's like,
salt of the earth.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, play your asses off because that's what I want.
Good.
You're not going to make me look bad.
How did it go?
It was a great gig.
Really?
It was a funny gig because now this is around 86-ish or so.
Okay.
And the only reason I remember it is because the bill was Roy, Bo, and the Miller Lite All-Stars.
Really?
Yeah. Both the Patriots and the Celtics were going to their respective, playoffs or whatever.
Okay.
And they got Tommy Heinsohn. I remember seeing Tommy Heinsohn in the back. He's eating a sandwich, and I said something lame to him, like, I love you on CBS or whatever. And what are you gonna say to him?
Yeah. What are you
you look.
Will you autograph my drumstick?
Yeah, really. Yeah, you look just like Fred Flintstone. Whatever. I mean,
the truth, that would really hurt.
Yeah. I mean, but so they got Tommy Heinsohn and all these other guys from Ray Berry and whatever from the teams, and they came out and they sang some lame a cappella song.
Oh yeah.
They sang "You Are So Beautiful." I don't know if you remember
come
that.
on.
They sang it. It actually wasn't that bad, but just the fact that
the idea though, you're scaring me.
But it was a great gig, and
you are so beautiful. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, no, you sang it better than they did. I'm telling you.
Really?
But I learned a lot about a musician and. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is I have met, but not played as much as I'd like, a lot of famous people.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had this naivete that if you got to a point where you became a really great musician, that somehow just that gift, that talent would mellow you out in some way as a person. It would just make you more at peace or something. And a lot of guys that I met, and I'm not going to mention their names because what's the point of it, but they were really jerky, as great as they were players.
Really?
Now, not all. I mean, I'll talk about the good people. One of the benefits of being at Berkeley, just to backtrack, is that when guys came to play at the Performance Center, usually you got a chance to meet them, particularly if you were friends with people who ran a Performance Center, which I was.
Okay.
And I got to meet another name I'll drop. There's a guy named Jordan Rudess. He's a keyboard player. He played with Jan Hammer and some other folk, and he's kind of like a keyboard legend.
Right.
I used to work with him, and he's from Great Neck too.
Okay.
He was like a Juilliard phenomena, prodigy, and said, I really like this fusion stuff, much to the chagrin of his folks, and kind of dropped the classical for that. But he's been who's a spokesperson for Korg and all that kind of stuff, so he's been doing some things. But at any rate, Jordan was playing with Tony Williams and Jan Hammer. It was a double bill. It was like a John McLaughlin trio and those guys.
Right.
And so I used Jordan as my in. I said, tell Jordan Rudess that Rodney from Great Neck wants to say hi.
Oh, yeah?
Said, oh, yeah, come on down. So I come down, and I'm talking to Jordan and stuff, and John McLaughlin is sitting there. And how can you not say hi to John McLaughlin?
Yeah, really.
And I walked up and I said, John, you hear this all the time, but you've just been such an influence in my musical life. And he shook my hand and looked at me like I was the most important thing right in that moment. It blew me away.
Really?
He was so at peace. It was like, wow. It's amazing that a guy with this amount of talent and fame actually thinks I'm important enough, a stranger, to talk to for a couple of minutes like this.
Wow.
Whereas I've met some other folk who I'm not going to mention,
and
they were like, wow, did somebody just step in something? I mean, that was kind of
less than gracious.
Yeah, that was so.
Make you wish you never bothered.
Exactly.
But you never know until you try, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
So tying this back